Walter Rice's fingers tense on the trigger as he infiltrates the Yadarin outpost, expecting fierce resistance. Instead, eerie silence greets him. The sprawling complex of metal and crystal structures on Nexus 7 stands abandoned, signs of hasty evacuation everywhere. Creeping through deserted corridors, Walter's instincts scream danger. This mission to gather critical intel on alien defenses has gone sideways from the start. No alarms blare, no guards fire plasma bolts, just emptiness and the faint hum of inactive systems. He reaches the central control room, weapon raised. A whimper catches his ears. Pivoting, he spots a lone Yadarin female cowering behind a console. Her blue-tinged skin trembles as she raises her hands in surrender. "Please," she begs in halting English. "Don't kill me." Walter hesitates. His orders are clear. Eliminate all threats. Secure the data. But this alien poses no danger. Intelligence takes priority. He can question her, then decide. "I'm not here to hurt you," he says, lowering his rifle slightly. "What's your name?" Stella, she stammers. Junior communications officer. Her terror is palpable. Yadarin propaganda paints humans as savage monsters. Walter sees an opportunity in her misconception. "I'm Walter," he replies, setting his weapon aside. "Are you injured?" Confusion flashes across Stella's features. This gentleness contradicts everything she's been told about brutal humans. Walter approaches slowly, hands open. "Let me help you up." Stella flinches as he draws near, but allows him to assist her. His touch is firm, yet careful. She stares at him, fear mingling with growing curiosity. For his part, Walter finds himself strangely drawn to the alien female. Her delicate features and expressive eyes stir something unexpected within him. He pushes the feeling aside, focusing on the mission. "What happened here?" he asks. "Where is everyone?" Stella hesitates, then explains the sudden evacuation order. She knows little of overall Yadarin plans or defenses. Walter realizes she has minimal tactical value. He faces a choice: eliminate her as a potential security risk or show mercy. The decision should be simple. Yet as he looks into Stella's frightened eyes, Walter finds himself unable to harm her. Instead, he opts for an unorthodox approach. If he can gain her trust, she may prove useful after all. And deep down, a part of him simply wants to ease her fear. "You're safe now," Walter says softly. "I won't let anything happen to you." Stella blinks in surprise. This human's kindness defies all her preconceptions. As Walter continues to treat her gently, her defensive walls begin to crumble. Neither of them realizes it yet, but this unexpected encounter will ripple outward, challenging the very foundations of human Yadarin relations. For now, they remain locked in a moment of connection, two enemies discovering shared humanity across the gulf between their species. Walter's mind raced as he considered his next move. Stella's vulnerability and the unexpected connection forming between them demanded a different approach. He needed to gain her trust fully if he hoped to gather useful intelligence without resorting to force. "Stella," he said softly, "I want you to understand that not everything you've been told about humans is true." With slow, deliberate movements, Walter began removing his combat gear. He unclasped his chest plate, setting it gently on the floor. Next came his arm guards and tactical vest. Stella watched with wide eyes as Walter's imposing silhouette transformed, revealing a more approachable figure underneath. "See?" Walter spread his arms, now clad only in his base layer. "I'm not so different from you." Stella's gaze roamed over Walter's form, taking in the similarities and differences between their species. Her posture relaxed slightly, curiosity replacing some of the fear in her eyes. Walter reached into his discarded vest and pulled out a small package. "Are you hungry? It's not much, but I'd like to share my rations with you." He unwrapped the compact meal, revealing a mix of dried fruits, nuts, and protein cubes. Stella hesitated, then reached out to accept a portion. As they ate in silence, the tension in the room eased further. "Thank you," Stella said quietly, her voice steadier than before. "This is unexpected." Walter smiled, seizing the opportunity to learn more. "I'd like to understand your people better, Stella. Could you tell me about Yadarin culture? Nothing military, just your way of life? Stella paused, weighing her options. After a moment, she began to speak, her words halting at first but gradually growing more animated. She described Yadaran art, their reverence for the bioluminescent forests of their homeworld, and the intricate social hierarchies that govern their society. As Stella spoke, Walter found himself genuinely fascinated. He shared bits of human culture in return, dispelling misconceptions and highlighting commonalities between their species. Their exchange evolved into a rich dialogue, each learning more about the other's world than they ever had through official channels. Walter noticed a change in Stella's appearance as their conversation deepened. Her pale blue skin began to shimmer, faint patterns of light dancing just beneath the surface. He recalled his xenobiology briefings. This bioluminescence was a Yadaran sign of attraction. The realization sent a jolt through Walter. He became acutely aware of Stella's delicate features, the grace of her movements, the musical quality of her voice. Professional detachment warred with a growing personal interest he couldn't deny. Stella, noticing Walter's gaze, suddenly fell silent. Her luminous patterns intensified, a mixture of embarrassment and excitement evident in her expression. The air between them grew charged with unspoken tension. Before either could address the shift in atmosphere, a piercing alarm shattered the moment. Emergency lights bathed the control room in a harsh red glow as a computerized voice blared warnings in the Yadaran language. "What's happening?" Walter demanded, instantly alert. Stella's eyes widened in panic. "It's a proximity alert. A patrol is approaching the outpost. They'll be here within minutes." Walter's mind raced through their options. He couldn't leave Stella behind. She'd face severe punishment for cooperating with a human. But taking her with him would complicate his mission immensely. "Stella, listen to me," he said urgently. "If you stay, your people will imprison you. Or worse, come with me. I promise I'll keep you safe." Stella froze, torn between her ingrained loyalty and the unexpected trust Walter had earned. After a moment of agonizing indecision, she nodded. "Quickly," Walter said, gathering his gear. "Is there a way out that avoids the main entrance?" "The maintenance tunnels," Stella replied, moving to a control panel. "I can access them from here." As Stella worked, Walter noticed a data crystal jutting from a nearby console. Acting on instinct, he pocketed the device, knowing it might contain vital intelligence. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow passage. Walter and Stella plunged into the dimly lit tunnel just as the sound of approaching vehicles reached their ears. They navigated the winding corridors, their breath coming in quick gasps as adrenaline coursed through their veins. The close quarters forced them into frequent contact, each touch sending a jolt of awareness through their bodies despite the danger. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged from a concealed exit into the alien landscape of Nexus 7. Twin moons hung low in the violet sky, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. "We need to move," Walter said, scanning the horizon. "There's a human outpost about 10 kilometers from here. It won't be easy, but it's our best chance." Stella nodded, her bioluminescence pulsing with a mix of fear and excitement. As they set off across the rugged landscape, Walter's mind whirled with the implications of their escape. He was now a fugitive with an alien companion and stolen intelligence. The mission parameters had shifted dramatically, but a new possibility was forming in his mind, a chance to bridge the gap between their species and potentially end the war. Glancing at Stella, Walter saw dedication in her eyes, alongside the lingering attraction that mirrored his own conflicted feelings. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew their journey together was only beginning. The rugged landscape of Nexus 7 stretched before Walter and Stella as they set out from the abandoned outpost. Twin moons cast an eerie glow over the alien terrain, their light barely penetrating the thick purple-tinged atmosphere. Walter's military training kicked in as he scanned the horizon, plotting the safest route towards the human forward operating base. "We need to be careful," Walter warned, his voice low. "This planet's full of surprises." Stella nodded, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. As they picked their way across the rocky ground, Walter noticed her occasional winces of discomfort. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern evident in his tone. "I'm fine," Stella insisted, but her faltering step betrayed her. It's just, my feet aren't adapted to this type of terrain. Walter frowned, realizing he'd overlooked this crucial detail. Yadaran physiology, while similar to human in many ways, had key differences. He mentally adjusted their pace, knowing they'd need to move more slowly to accommodate Stella's limitations. As they continued their journey, the alien landscape grew increasingly treacherous. Patches of ground that appeared solid would suddenly give way, forcing them to backtrack and find new routes. Strange, crystalline plants dotted the landscape, their sharp edges glinting in the moonlight. "Watch out for those," Stella warned, pointing to a cluster of violet-hued flora. "They release toxic spores if disturbed." Walter nodded gratefully, skirting around the dangerous plants. Their progress slowed to a crawl as they navigated the hazardous terrain, each step requiring careful consideration. Suddenly, Stella froze, her eyes wide with alarm. "Wait," she whispered, her hand gripping Walter's arm. "Listen." In the distance, the faint hum of anti-grav engines could be heard. Walter's heart raced as he realized the implications. "Yadaran scouts," he muttered, scanning their surroundings for cover. Stella's skin pulsed with rapid patterns of light, a clear sign of her distress. "They must be searching for me," she said, her voice trembling. Walter spotted a dark opening in a nearby rock formation. "There," he said, pointing. "We can hide in that cave system." They hurried towards the cave entrance, the sound of approaching vehicles growing louder. Just as they ducked inside, a Yadaran scout ship crested a nearby hill, its searchlights sweeping the area they had just vacated. The cave interior was cramped and dark, forcing Walter and Stella to press close together as they moved deeper into the rock. Walter activated a small light on his wrist device, revealing a network of twisting tunnels stretching into the darkness. As they ventured further into the cave system, Stella stumbled on the uneven ground. Walter caught her, but not before she scraped her arm against a jagged rock outcropping. "You're hurt," Walter said, examining the injury in the dim light. A thin line of iridescent blue fluid, Yadaran blood, welled up from the cut. "It's nothing," Stella insisted, but Walter could see the pain in her eyes. "Let me take a look," he said gently, guiding her to sit on a smooth section of rock. Walter retrieved a small med kit from his pack and began cleaning the wound. As he worked, Walter became acutely aware of their proximity. Stella's skin shimmered with delicate patterns of light, intensifying wherever his fingers made contact. The cave suddenly felt much warmer, the air thick with unspoken tension. "There," Walter said softly, finishing the bandage. "How does that feel?" Stella flexed her arm, her bioluminescence flaring brightly. "Much better," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Walter." Their eyes met in the dim light, and for a moment neither moved. Walter found himself captivated by the play of light across Stella's alien features, his heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with their recent escape. The moment was broken by a distant rumble of engines. Walter reluctantly pulled away, moving to the cave entrance to assess the situation. The Yadaran scout ships were still searching the area, their lights sweeping across the landscape. "We'll need to wait them out," Walter said, returning to where Stella sat. "This might be a good time to talk. There's a lot we need to discuss." Stella nodded, her expression growing serious. "You're right. I think it's time I told you everything I know about our military strategies." Walter listened intently as Stella began to speak, revealing crucial information about Yadaran defenses and battle tactics. In return, he shared the truth about human intentions, their desire for peace, and the misconceptions that had fueled the conflict. As they talked, Walter felt a growing sense of hope. If they could bring this information back, there might be a real chance to end the war. But he also knew the danger they faced. Both humans and Yadarans would see their cooperation as treason. Hours passed as they waited for the search parties to move on. When Walter finally determined it was safe to leave, he and Stella emerged from the cave to find the landscape bathed in the light of a new day. As they resumed their journey, Walter spotted an unusual structure in the distance. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to the sleek alien architecture. Stella's eyes widened in recognition. "It's one of our abandoned research outposts," she explained. "We should investigate. There might be supplies we can use." They approached the outpost cautiously, Walter's weapon at the ready. The entrance slid open with a hiss of stale air, revealing an interior filled with unfamiliar technology. As they explored the facility, Walter's attention was drawn to a peculiar device dominating the central chamber. "Stella," he called, "do you know what this is?" Stella examined the machine, her expression a mix of awe and concern. "This is experimental technology," she said slowly. "If I'm reading this correctly, it's designed to neutralize both human and Yataran weapons." Walter's mind raced with the implications. Such a device could change everything. But in whose hands? The wrong decision could escalate the war beyond imagining. Before he could voice his thoughts, Stella turned to face him. The intensity of her gaze stopped Walter in his tracks. Her bioluminescent patterns were pulsing rapidly, creating a mesmerizing display across her skin. "Walter," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to tell you something." The air between them seemed to crackle with energy. Walter found himself moving closer, drawn by an irresistible force. "What is it?" he asked, his own voice husky with emotion. Instead of answering, Stella closed the distance between them. Her alien features were inches from his own, her eyes searching his face. Walter's heart pounded as he realized what was about to happen. Their lips met in a kiss that sent shockwaves through Walter's body. Stella's skin blazed with light, illuminating the dim chamber. As they embraced, Walter became aware of a sweet, intoxicating scent filling the air, some kind of pheromone released by Stella's alien physiology. The kiss deepened, months of tension and growing attraction finally finding release. Walter's mind swam with conflicting emotions: desire, confusion, exhilaration. He knew this was wrong on so many levels, yet it felt more right than anything he'd ever experienced. Suddenly, a harsh buzzing filled the air. Walter and Stella broke apart, startled as the outpost's long-dormant security systems roared to life. Red warning lights bathed the chamber, and a computerized voice began blaring in the Yataran language. "We triggered something," Walter shouted over the noise. "We need to shut it down." Stella nodded, her expression shifting from passion to drive in an instant. She hurried to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the alien interface. "I can deactivate it," she called, "but I need your help. There's a manual override on the far wall. You'll need to input a sequence of commands." Walter rushed to the indicated panel, following Stella's rapid-fire instructions. As they worked in tandem, Walter marveled at how seamlessly they functioned as a team, despite their vastly different backgrounds. With a final command, the alarms fell silent. Walter breathed a sigh of relief, turning to smile at Stella. But his triumph was short-lived. A new sound filled the air, the unmistakable whine of approaching ships. Stella's face paled. "We've triggered a distress beacon," she said, her voice filled with dread. "Both our people will be converging on this location." Walter's mind raced, weighing their options. The experimental weapon neutralizer loomed behind them, its potential to end or escalate the war hanging in the balance. They had mere minutes to decide their course of action. Before Walter could voice a plan, the outpost's entrance slid open with a hiss. A familiar figure strode in, weapon raised. Captain Marcus Blackwood, Walter's commanding officer, took in the scene with a look of utter shock. "Rice!" Blackwood barked, his eyes darting between Walter and the luminous Stella. "What in God's name is going on here?" Walter stepped forward, placing himself between Blackwood and Stella. He opened his mouth to explain, knowing the next few moments could determine not just their fate, but the future of human-Yataran relations. Behind him, Stella's eyes narrowed as she recognized the human captain. Her mind raced, recalling crucial intelligence about Blackwood, information that could tip the scales in this precarious situation. As Walter began to speak, Stella weighed her options, knowing her next move could change everything. Everything. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Captain Blackwood," Walter began, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I know this looks bad, but I need you to listen. We've discovered something that could change the course of this war." Blackwood's eyes narrowed, his weapon still trained on Walter. "You've got 30 seconds, Rice. Make it count." Walter quickly outlined their findings, emphasizing the potential of the weapon neutralizer and the information Stella had shared. As he spoke, Stella's eyes remained fixed on Blackwood, her mind racing. "Captain," she interjected, her voice calm but firm, "I know about Operation Sunburst." Blackwood's face paled, his grip on the weapon faltering for a moment. "How could you possibly—" "Because I was there," Stella continued. "I was part of the Yadaran intelligence team that intercepted your transmission. We know about the civilian casualties, the cover-up." Walter glanced between them, sensing the shift in dynamics. Blackwood's fists tight, his expression a mix of shock and resignation. Before anyone could speak further, the sound of approaching Yadaran vessels filled the air. Blackwood lowered his weapon, his decision made in an instant. "We need to move. Now," he ordered, gesturing towards the exit. As they rushed out of the outpost, a Yadaran patrol, led by Commander Zara, emerged from the purple haze. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, forcing the group to take cover behind a cluster of crystalline formations. "Stella!" Zara called out, her voice a mix of relief and confusion. "What's going on? Are you being held captive?" "No, Zara," Stella shouted back. "We need to stop fighting. There's a chance for peace." Walter peeked out from behind cover, assessing the situation. He caught sight of a Yadaran soldier taking aim at Stella, who was partially exposed. Without hesitation, he launched himself at her, tackling her to the ground as a plasma bolt seared the air where she had been standing. They landed in a tangle of limbs, Walter's body shielding Stella's. For a moment, the chaos of the battlefield faded away. Stella's skin pulsed with brilliant patterns of light, her eyes wide as she looked up at Walter. He could feel the rapid beat of her alien heart, so similar yet so different from his own. The moment was shattered by a deafening rumble from the outpost. The experimental technology was overloading, the entire structure beginning to shake. "Everyone fall back," Blackwood shouted, his military training taking over. "That thing's going to blow." In the face of a common threat, the firefight ceased. Humans and Yadarans alike scrambled for safety, racing away from the unstable outpost. Walter helped Stella to her feet, and they ran hand in hand, their fingers intertwined. As they sprinted across the alien terrain, Walter's enhanced physiology allowed him to easily keep pace, but he could see Stella struggling, her feet ill-suited for the rocky ground. Without breaking stride, he scooped her up in his arms, carrying her as they fled. The group reached a network of deep crevices just as the outpost exploded. Walter spotted a narrow alcove and dove inside, Stella still in his arms. The force of the blast washed over them, the ground shaking violently. In the confined space of the alcove, Walter and Stella found themselves pressed tightly together. The adrenaline of their escape, combined with their close proximity, sent waves of sensation through both of them. Stella's bioluminescence flared brightly, pulsing in rapid, mesmerizing patterns. Walter felt a strange tingling wherever their skin made contact, a physiological response he'd never experienced before. Their eyes met in the dim light of the alcove, and without thinking, they came together in a passionate embrace. The kiss was electric, unlike anything either of them had felt before. Stella's alien biochemistry reacted to Walter's touch, releasing pheromones that filled the small space. Walter's head swam with the intoxicating scent, his body responding in ways he couldn't have anticipated. As the rumbling of the explosion faded, they reluctantly separated, both breathing heavily. The reality of their situation came crashing back as they heard voices calling out, searching for survivors. They emerged from the alcove to find both human and Yadaran forces regrouping. Captain Blackwood and Commander Zara stood together, their previous hostility replaced by a wary truce. "The explosion will have alerted both our commands," Blackwood said grimly. "We don't have much time." Zara nodded in agreement. "If we're going to prevent this situation from escalating, we need to act fast." Walter stepped forward, Stella at his side. "We need to arrange a meeting between our leaders," he said. "There's too much at stake to let this opportunity slip away." Blackwood considered for a moment, then nodded. "I'll use my authority to call for an emergency summit," he said, "but we'll need a neutral location." "The abandoned alien space station orbiting Nexus 7, Stella suggested. It's been deemed off-limits by both our species. It would be the perfect place for negotiations. As the group began to make preparations, Walter and Stella found themselves at the center of attention. Their unique perspective, bridging the gap between human and Yadaran understanding, would be crucial in the upcoming talks. As they boarded the transport vessel that would take them to the space station, Walter felt a mix of hope and apprehension. He glanced at Stella, seeing his own emotions mirrored in her luminous eyes. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. The ship lifted off, leaving the scarred landscape of Nexus 7 behind. As they ascended through the purple-tinged atmosphere, Walter and Stella stood side by side in the observation deck, watching their battlefield shrink into the distance. Stella's hand found Walter's, their fingers intertwining once more. The physical contact sent a pleasant shiver through both of them, a reminder of their deepening bond. As the ship broke free of the planet's gravity, the vast expanse of space opened up before them, full of both danger and possibility. The journey to the space station had begun, carrying with it the hopes for peace between their species. But as Walter gazed out at the star-filled void, he couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. Yet as the transport vessel docked with the abandoned alien space station, a sense of foreboding settled over the group. The airlock hissed open, revealing a cavernous docking bay shrouded in shadows. Walter stepped out first, his enhanced vision scanning for any signs of danger. Stella followed close behind, her bioluminescent patterns providing a soft, pulsing light. Life support systems are at minimal levels, Captain Blackwood announced, checking a handheld scanner. We'll need to get them back online before the delegates arrive. The group moved deeper into the station, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. Suddenly, a violent shudder ran through the structure, nearly knocking them off their feet. "What was that?" Commander Zara demanded, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. Before anyone could respond, a series of explosions rocked the station. Alarms blared as emergency lights bathed the corridors in a crimson glow. "We're under attack," Blackwood shouted over the din. "Someone's trying to sabotage the peace talks." Walter's mind raced, assessing their options. "We need to split up," he said. "Stella and I will try to restore life support. The rest of you secure the station and find those responsible." As the others moved out, Walter and Stella made their way to the station's central control hub. The life support systems were failing rapidly, and they knew time was running out. "Here," Stella said, gesturing to a narrow maintenance shaft. "This should lead us directly to the main power couplings." They squeezed into the tight space, their bodies pressing close as they navigated the twisting passage. Walter could feel the heat radiating from Stella's skin, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing more rapidly in response to their proximity. As they worked to repair the damaged systems, Walter found himself acutely aware of every point of contact between them. Stella's alien biochemistry reacted to his presence, releasing a subtle mist of pheromones that filled the confined space. "Walter," Stella breathed, her voice husky, "we need to focus." He nodded, forcing himself to concentrate on the task at hand. With their combined knowledge of human and Yadaran technology, they managed to restore partial life support to the station. Emerging from the maintenance shaft, they found Captain Blackwood waiting for them. "Good work," he said tersely. "But we've got bigger problems. We've identified the saboteurs, a group of Yadaran extremists opposed to the peace talks. They're still at large in the station." "We need to find them before they can do more damage," Walter said. As they set out to search the station, Walter and Stella's enhanced teamwork was evident. They moved in perfect sync, anticipating each other's actions with an almost preternatural awareness. Their search led them to a sealed chamber deep within the station. Using a combination of Walter's strength and Stella's technical expertise, they managed to bypass the locks. Inside, they found a treasure trove of ancient alien technology. At the center stood a device unlike anything they had ever seen, a shimmering construct of light and energy. "What is it?" Walter asked, awe evident in his voice. Stella's eyes widened as she studied the device. "I think it's some kind of communication technology, but far more advanced than anything we've encountered." As they approached the device, it hummed to life, responding to their presence. Without thinking, they reached out simultaneously, their hands touching the glowing surface. A surge of energy coursed through them, and suddenly, Walter found his mind flooded with alien sensations. He could feel Stella's thoughts, her emotions, her very essence intertwining with his own. Images flashed before his eyes, memories of Stella's childhood on her homeworld, the wonder she felt upon first encountering humans, the growing attraction she had been fighting since meeting Walter. In turn, he knew she was experiencing his own memories and feelings. The connection was overwhelming, intimate in a way that transcended physical touch. When the energy field finally dissipated, they stumbled back, gasping. Walter stared at Stella, seeing her in a completely new light. The depth of understanding between them now was profound, bridging the gap between their species in ways he had never thought possible. "We have to tell the others," Stella said, her voice trembling with emotion. "This technology, it could change everything." Before they could leave, a violent explosion rocked the chamber. The station's alarms blared once again, this time with even greater urgency. The power core, Walter realized with dawning horror. The extremists must be making their final move. They raced through the station's corridors, their movements perfectly in sync. The lingering effects of their mental connection allowed them to coordinate without words, anticipating each other's actions with uncanny precision. They reached the power core to find it on the verge of a catastrophic overload. Walter immediately began rerouting power flows, while Stella worked to stabilize the core's containment field. "We're out of time," Stella shouted over the roar of the failing systems. "We need to bypass the main regulator." Walter nodded, understanding exactly what she meant thanks to their shared experience. He moved to the control panel, his fingers flying over the alien interface with newfound familiarity. With seconds to spare, they managed to avert disaster. The power core stabilized, and an eerie silence fell over the station. Captain Blackwood's voice crackled over the comm system. "Rice, report. What's happening down there?" "We've stabilized the core, sir," Walter replied, "and we've made a discovery that could change everything." As they made their way back to the main conference area, Walter and Stella exchanged a look of shared understanding. Their unique bond had not only saved the station, but might have just paved the way for a new era of human-Yadaran relations. The delegates were waiting for them, a mix of tension and curiosity evident on both human and Yadaran faces. Walter took a deep breath, preparing to explain their incredible discovery and its potential to bridge the gap between their species. As he began to speak, Stella's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. The simple gesture sent a cascade of shared sensations between them, a reminder of the profound connection they now shared. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, a living symbol of what was possible when humans and Yadarans truly understood one another. Dares stood each other. The connection they now shared transcended mere words, bridging the gap between their species in ways previously unimaginable. As Walter began to explain their discovery to the assembled delegates, a new sense of purpose filled the room. The potential of the alien communication device to foster unprecedented understanding between humans and Yadarans was clear to all present. In the days that followed, a joint human-Yadaran task force was quickly assembled to study the device further. Walter and Stella found themselves at the center of this new initiative, their unique experience with the technology making them invaluable to the research efforts. The team set up a research facility on Nexus 7, converting an abandoned outpost into a state-of-the-art laboratory. The planet's neutral status made it the perfect location for both species to work together, free from the political pressures of their respective homeworlds. As they settled into their new roles, Walter and Stella found themselves grappling with the challenge of balancing their professional duties with their growing personal relationship. The intensity of their shared experience on the space station had left an indelible mark on both of them, creating a bond that defied easy categorization. During their off hours, they would often find secluded spots in the facility's hydroponics garden or observation deck, stealing moments of privacy to explore the depths of their connection. These encounters were charged with an electricity that went beyond the physical, their enhanced awareness of each other's thoughts and feelings, adding a new dimension to their intimacy. One evening, as they worked late in the lab, Walter and Stella made a breakthrough in understanding the alien device. Stella's fingers flew across the holographic interface, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with excitement. "Walter, look at this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The device doesn't just facilitate mental communication. It has the potential to enhance physical sensations between users." Walter leaned in close, his breath warm on Stella's neck as he studied the data. "You're right," he said, a note of wonder in his voice. "This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies interactions." Their eyes met, and in that moment, the implications of their discovery hung heavy in the air between them. Without a word, they both understood the potential this held for their own relationship. The next day, during a team meeting, Walter and Stella volunteered to be the primary test subjects for further experiments with the device. Dr. Alara, a senior Yadaran scientist, raised an eyebrow at their eagerness, but nodded her approval. As they prepared for the first trial, Walter couldn't help but notice the way Stella's hands trembled slightly as she attached the monitoring equipment to her temples. He reached out, steadying her with a gentle touch. "Ready?" he asked, his voice low and reassuring. Stella nodded, her luminous eyes meeting his. "Ready?" They activated the device, and for a moment nothing happened. Then, without warning, a surge of energy coursed through them both. Walter gasped as his mind was suddenly flooded with sensation. He could feel the cool metal of the lab table beneath Stella's fingers, as if it were his own skin. The rapid beating of her heart echoed in his chest. Stella's eyes widened, her bioluminescence flaring brightly. "Walter," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "I can feel—" Before she could finish, the connection intensified. Every point of contact between them became a conduit for shared sensation. The brush of fabric against skin, the warmth of their mingled breath, the pounding of their pulses, all of it merged and amplified, creating a feedback loop of pleasure that threatened to overwhelm them both. Lost in the intensity of the moment, Walter pulled Stella close, their lips meeting in a searing kiss. The taste of her, alien yet familiar, exploded across his senses. He could feel her experiencing his own rush of desire, creating a dizzying spiral of shared emotion and physical sensation. A loud crash jolted them back to reality. They turned to see Dr. Alara standing in the doorway, a dropped data pad at her feet. Her expression was a mix of shock and suspicion. "What is going on here?" she demanded, her voice sharp. Walter and Stella sprang apart, hastily disconnecting themselves from the device. As they struggled to explain, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. "Security breach in Sector 7, a computerized voice announced. "All personnel report to designated safe zones." Dr. Alara's eyes narrowed. "We'll discuss this later," she said tersely. "Right now, we have more pressing concerns." As they rushed to respond to the emergency, Walter and Stella exchanged a worried glance. They knew their actions had not gone unnoticed, and the consequences could be far-reaching. But with the facility under attack, they had no choice but to put their personal concerns aside and focus on the task at hand. The corridor ahead was filled with acrid smoke, and the sound of distant explosions echoed through the structure. Whatever was happening, it was clear that the fragile peace between humans and Yadarans was once again under threat. Walter and Stella moved forward, their enhanced connection allowing them to navigate the chaos with uncanny synchronicity. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of masked intruders. Walter's combat training kicked in, and he moved to engage the nearest attacker. At the same time, Stella's Yadaran agility allowed her to dodge a volley of energy blasts, her bioluminescent patterns flashing in a disorienting display. Working in perfect tandem, they managed to subdue the intruders. As Walter secured the last of the attackers, Stella accessed a nearby terminal. "These aren't just random saboteurs," she said, her voice tight with concern. "They're part of a coordinated attack on multiple sections of the facility. We need to—" Her words were cut off by another explosion, this one much closer. The floor beneath them buckled, and Walter instinctively reached out to steady Stella. As the dust settled, they found themselves cut off from the rest of the facility, trapped in a small section of the corridor. Walter surveyed their surroundings, his enhanced vision piercing through the gloom. "There," he said, pointing to a narrow maintenance shaft. "It's our only way out." As they squeezed into the tight space, their bodies pressed close, Walter became acutely aware of Stella's presence. The residual effects of their experience with the alien device seemed to linger, heightening every sensation. He could feel the rapid beat of her heart, smell the subtle alien scent of her skin. Stella's bioluminescent patterns pulsed more rapidly, a clear sign of her own heightened awareness. "Walter," she whispered, her voice husky, "we need to focus." He nodded, forcing himself to concentrate on their predicament, but as they navigated the twisting passageway, every accidental brush of skin against skin sent shockwaves of sensation through them both. The confined space only intensified the tension between them, a mix of adrenaline and desire that threatened to overwhelm their rational minds. Just as the pressure became almost unbearable, they emerged into a larger chamber. The relative coolness of the air was a relief, but it did little to quell the fire that had been ignited between them. Before they could catch their breath, a new alarm began to sound, different from the others, more urgent. "Warning," a computerized voice announced. "Quarantine breach detected. Unknown pathogen released into air circulation system. All personnel initiate emergency containment procedures immediately." Walter and Stella exchanged a look of shared horror. The situation had just become far more complicated and potentially deadly. As they raced to respond to this new threat, the lingering intensity of their connection served as a stark reminder of what was at stake. Their unique bond might be the key to saving not just themselves, but the entire research team, and possibly the fragile peace between their species. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor, adding a new layer of urgency to their already dire situation. Walter and Stella knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their fates now inextricably linked in ways neither of them could have imagined. As they caught their breath, the gravity of their situation began to sink in. "We need to find a way to contain this pathogen," Walter said, his voice tight with urgency. "And fast." Stella nodded, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. "The main lab should have the equipment we need. Let's go." They moved swiftly through the corridors, their enhanced connection allowing them to anticipate each other's movements with uncanny precision. As they approached the lab, they heard raised voices and the sound of equipment being thrown about. Walter held up a hand, signaling Stella to stop. They peered around the corner to see a group of armed individuals in unmarked uniforms ransacking the lab. At the center of the chaos stood a tall, imposing figure with the unmistakable bearing of a military leader. "Admiral Vex," Stella whispered, her voice filled with a mix of fear and anger. Walter's eyes hardened. He'd heard rumors about the hardline admiral who opposed any cooperation between humans and Yadurans. Seeing him here, in the midst of their crisis, could only mean trouble. "We need a plan," Walter murmured, his mind racing. Before they could formulate a strategy, alarms blared throughout the facility. The computerized voice announced, "Quarantine protocol initiated. All personnel report to designated containment areas immediately." The chaos in the lab intensified. Admiral Vex barked orders to his team, demanding they secure all research data. In the confusion, Walter and Stella saw their opportunity. They slipped into the lab, using the cover of overturned equipment to make their way to the main research terminal. Stella's fingers flew across the holographic interface, her Yaduran biology allowing her to interface with the system at an incredible speed. "I've got it," she said, her voice barely audible above the commotion. "The initial analysis of the pathogen, but we'll need more time to develop a cure." Walter nodded, his eyes scanning the room for potential threats. "Download what you can. We'll have to continue our work elsewhere." As Stella worked, Walter noticed one of Vex's soldiers approaching their position. Without hesitation, he moved to intercept, using his combat training to quickly subdue the man with a series of precise strikes. The scuffle drew attention. Admiral Vex's head snapped in their direction, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Walter and Stella. "Stop them!" he roared, pointing at the pair. Walter grabbed Stella's hand, pulling her away from the terminal. "Time to go!" They ran, ducking energy blasts and weaving through the chaos of the lab. As they reached the corridor, Walter felt a searing pain in his side. He stumbled, realizing he'd been hit. Stella's eyes widened in alarm. Without breaking stride, she wrapped an arm around his waist, supporting him as they continued their escape. They made their way to a small auxiliary lab that had been set up for overflow research. Stella helped Walter onto a bench, her hands moving quickly to assess his wound. "It's not deep," she said, relief evident in her voice. "But we need to treat it quickly." As Stella worked to clean and bandage the injury, Walter activated the lab's security protocols, sealing the doors. "That won't hold them for long," he said, wincing as Stella applied pressure to his side. She nodded, her luminous eyes meeting his. "Then we'd better work fast." They turned their attention to the data Stella had managed to download. As they pored over the analysis, a realization began to dawn on them both. "Walter," Stella said, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Look at this, the pathogen. It's responding to our unique physiology." He leaned in, studying the holographic display. "You're right. Our exposure to the alien communication device, it's altered our DNA in a way that makes us resistant." Their eyes met, a spark of understanding passing between them. The solution to the pathogen lay in their very bodies, in the unique bond they shared. Before they could discuss further, the sound of pounding fists on the lab door echoed through the room. Admiral Vex's voice boomed from the other side. "Open this door immediately! That's an order!" Walter and Stella exchanged a look of drive. They knew what they had to do, but the path ahead was fraught with danger. The fate of everyone in the facility, and perhaps the future of human-Yadaran relations, now rested in their hands. As the pounding on the door intensified, they set to work, their movements perfectly synchronized. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their unique bond now the key to salvation. Saving not just themselves, but the entire research team, and possibly the fragile peace between their species. The next few days were a blur of activity as Walter and Stella worked tirelessly to contain the pathogen and neutralize the threat. Their unique connection proved invaluable, allowing them to coordinate their efforts with unprecedented efficiency. Once the immediate crisis had passed, they found themselves thrust into a new role, ambassadors for human-Yadaran cooperation. Months later, Walter and Stella stood on the bridge of a sleek interstellar vessel, gazing out at the swirling blue-green atmosphere of Yadara Prime's largest colony world. Their mission to visit other alien races had begun, starting with this crucial stop to address concerns about human-Yadaran integration. As they entered the planet's turbulent atmosphere, the ship shuddered violently. Walter gripped the console, his enhanced vision picking up the strain on the hull. "These storms are worse than the reports indicated," he said, turning to Stella. She nodded, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with concern. "The colony's shield generators must be under immense stress." They landed in a vast docking bay, the transparent dome above revealing ominous storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Governor Kral, a stern-faced Yadaran with deep blue skin, greeted them with barely concealed skepticism. "Welcome to Yadara Prime," he said, his voice gruff. "I hope your presence here proves useful." Walter and Stella exchanged a glance, silently acknowledging the challenge ahead. As they toured the colony, the signs of environmental stress were evident: cracked pavements, stressed vegetation, and an undercurrent of tension among the colonists. In the control center, alarms blared as another atmospheric disturbance approached. Walter leaned over the main console, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Your shield generators are operating at 200% capacity," he said, turning to Kral. "They won't hold much longer under this strain." Kral's expression darkened. "And what do you propose we do, human?" Walter's mind raced, considering the colony's resources and the unique properties of Yadaran technology. "If we reconfigure the emitter array and introduce a phase variance, we might be able to create a more stable field." Kral looked skeptical, but nodded to his technicians. "Make it so." As Walter worked with the Yadaran team, Stella moved through the colony, her diplomatic skills put to the test as she addressed the concerns of both Yadaran colonists and the small human contingent. Her ability to bridge the gap between the two species began to soften the hard edges of mistrust. Days passed as Walter and his team worked tirelessly on the shield generators. Progress was slow, but steady. Then a massive storm cell formed on the horizon, threatening to overwhelm the weakened shields. "We need to stabilize the southern relay station," Walter said, studying the readouts. It's our weak point. Kral shook his head. It's too dangerous. No one could survive outside the shields in this weather. Walter and Stella shared a look of purpose. We'll go, Stella said. Suited up in protective gear, they ventured out into the maelstrom. Wind howled around them, carrying debris that pinged off their helmets. They reached the relay station, fingers fumbling with tools as they worked to repair the damaged components. Suddenly, a violent gust caught Stella off balance. Walter lunged, catching her arm and pulling her close. For a moment, despite the howling wind and the urgency of their task, they were acutely aware of each other's proximity. The storm intensified, forcing them to take shelter in a small maintenance pod. Pressed together in the confined space, they felt the electricity of their connection, enhanced by the lingering effects of the alien device. Walter, Stella's voice came through the comm, breathless. The storm's electromagnetic interference, it's affecting our suits. He nodded, seeing the warning lights flashing on both their displays. We need to conserve power. There's only one option. With efficiency born of necessity, they removed their outer gear, huddling together in a single suit to maintain life support. The skin-to-skin contact sent shockwaves of sensation through them both, their heightened connection making every touch feel like a jolt of electricity. As they waited out the storm, the alien communication device in Walter's pocket activated unexpectedly. A surge of shared sensation flooded through them, intensifying their already heightened awareness of each other. When the storm finally passed, they emerged, shaken but more in sync than ever. They completed the repairs with a level of coordination that amazed even themselves. Back at the colony, their success was met with a mix of relief and newfound respect. Governor Kral approached them, his stern demeanor softened slightly. Your actions have saved many lives today, he said. Perhaps there is more to this human-Yadaran cooperation than I first believed. As Walter and Stella basked in their hard-won victory, alarms blared once again. But this time, the threat came from within. A group of isolationist Yadarans, opposed to human interference, had breached the control center. Walter and Stella raced to confront the saboteurs, their enhanced connection allowing them to move and think as one. They entered the control room, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that their actions here would shape the future of human-Yadaran relations for years to come. As they prepared to confront the isolationist Yadarans, an urgent message flashed across the control room's main display. Priority transmission from Earth Command, the AI announced. New assignment, Nexus Hub. Walter and Stella exchanged glances, their momentary confusion quickly replaced by understanding. The situation on Yadera Prime was stabilizing, but their unique skills were needed elsewhere. Governor Kral, Walter said, turning to the Yaderan leader, we must depart immediately. Can your security forces handle the isolationists? Kral nodded, his expression stern but respectful. We can manage. Your work here has given us a fighting chance. Go, and may your journey be fruitful. Within hours, Walter and Stella found themselves aboard a sleek interstellar vessel, rocketing towards Nexus Hub. As they approached the sprawling space station, its massive structure came into view, a testament to interspecies cooperation and the fragile peace it represented. Nexus Hub. This is the Earth Yadaran diplomatic vessel, Concordia, requesting docking clearance, Walter transmitted. A gravelly voice responded, tinged with barely concealed stress. Concordia, this is Administrator Marcus Reeves. Clearance granted. We've been expecting you. As they docked, Walter noticed the station's erratic power fluctuations. Stella's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with concern, mirroring his own unease. They were greeted by Reeves, a weathered human diplomat with lines etched deep into his face. Welcome to Nexus Hub, he said, his voice low and urgent. We have a situation. Reeves briefed them as they walked briskly through the station's winding corridors. Alien delegates from various species moved past them, their faces a mix of concern and barely concealed hostility. Life support systems are failing, Reeves explained, and with them, our chances for peace. We need you to investigate while maintaining your diplomatic duties. Walter nodded, his mind already racing through potential causes. I'll need access to the main engineering bay. Granted, Reeves said, turning to Stella. And you, Ambassador, we need your unique perspective to keep the delegates from each other's throats. Stella's luminous eyes met Walter's. "We'll find the source of this trouble," she assured Reeves. They parted ways, each with their own mission. Walter made his way to the engineering bay, his enhanced senses taking in every detail of the station's inner workings. As he began his inspection, he noticed subtle inconsistencies, misaligned power couplings, bypassed safety protocols. "This is sabotage," he muttered, his fingers tracing a deliberately severed connection. Meanwhile, Stella found herself in the heart of a diplomatic maelstrom. Alien species, some familiar and others utterly foreign, argued in a cacophony of languages and gestures. "Please," she said, her voice carrying a subtle harmonic that caught their attention. "We must work together to overcome this crisis." A tall serpentine being hissed, "Why should we trust you, half-breed?" Stella stood her ground, her bioluminescence pulsing with calm drive. "Because I understand both the human and Yadaran perspectives. Our differences can be our strength." As she spoke, she noticed a small, hunched figure watching from the shadows. Its eyes met hers for a moment before it scurried away. Back in the maintenance tunnels, Walter encountered the same figure, a reclusive alien engineer named Zix. The being's skin crackled with natural electromagnetic energy. "You're looking in the wrong places," Zix said, its voice a low buzz. Walter studied the alien. "You know something about these malfunctions?" Zix's antennae twitched. "Follow me, but be warned, the truth may be more than you're prepared to face." As they navigated the cramped passageways, Walter's body brushed against the cool metal walls. The alien communication device in his pocket hummed to life, creating a low-level sensory link with Stella. Suddenly, he could feel her tension as she mediated a heated argument between delegates. The unexpected connection made him acutely aware of her presence, even from afar. Zix led them to a hidden chamber deep within the station. As they entered, Walter's eyes widened. A group of aliens from various species worked feverishly at an array of jury-rigged consoles. "Saboteurs!" Walter breathed, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon he no longer carried. One of the aliens turned, its multifaceted eyes narrowing. "Intruders! Stop them!" Chaos erupted. Walter's military training kicked in as he dodged an energy blast, rolling behind a console for cover. Zix's electromagnetic abilities flared, shorting out several of the saboteurs' weapons. Through his link with Stella, Walter felt a spike of alarm. She had sensed his distress and was now racing towards their location, using their connection as a guide. As Walter grappled with an attacker, he felt a sharp pain in his side, a glancing blow from an energy weapon. He stumbled, momentarily disoriented. Suddenly, Stella burst into the room, her eyes blazing with perseverance. The alien communication device pulsed, intensifying their connection. Walter felt a surge of energy as Stella's consciousness merged with his own. Moving in perfect synchronization, they engaged the saboteurs. Walter's combat skills, enhanced by Stella's guidance through their link, allowed him to anticipate and counter each attack. Stella used her knowledge of alien physiology to incapacitate their opponents without causing permanent harm. Zix joined the fray, his electromagnetic pulses disabling the remaining weapons and communication devices. Within minutes, the saboteurs were subdued. As the immediate threat passed, Walter and Stella became acutely aware of their proximity. The device's effect, combined with the adrenaline of combat, had heightened their senses. Every touch, every shared breath sent shivers of sensation through their bodies. "We need to stabilize the station," Walter said, his voice husky with undedication tension. Stella nodded, her luminous eyes locked with his. "Let's get to work." They raced to the main control room, Zix in tow. The station's systems were on the verge of cascade failure. Walter's fingers flew across the holographic interface, his engineering expertise guiding his actions. "We need to reroute power through the auxiliary systems," he said urgently. Stella's hands joined his on the console, her understanding of alien technologies complementing his skills. Zix added his unique abilities, using controlled electromagnetic pulses to stabilize fluctuating energy fields. As they worked, the sensory link between Walter and Stella continued to pulse and surge. Each accidental touch, each shared glance, sent waves of sensation cascading through them. The intimacy of their connection, combined with the high-stakes situation, created a heady mix of focus and distraction. Finally, after tense minutes that felt like hours, the station's systems stabilized. Emergency klaxons fell silent, replaced by a collective sigh of relief from the gathered aliens. Administrator Reeves approached them, his face a mix of gratitude and curiosity. "You've saved us all," he said. "But I have to ask, what was that device you used? The way you worked together was extraordinary." Walter and Stella exchanged glances, the device in question humming quietly between them. They knew that their explanation would have far-reaching consequences, not just for themselves, but for the future of human-Yadaran relations and interspecies cooperation as a whole. Before they could respond, an alert chimed on Walter's communicator. "Priority message from Earth Command," the AI announced. As Walter accessed the message, his expression grew serious. He turned to Stella, their eyes meeting in silent communication. "We're being recalled to Earth," he said, his voice low. "There's growing concern about human-Yadaran relationships and hybrid children." Stella's bioluminescent patterns flickered with worry. They both understood the implications. Their own relationship would be under scrutiny, and the device that had brought them closer might become a point of contention. As they prepared to leave Nexus Hub, the weight of their next challenge settled upon them. The battles they had faced here were just the beginning. On Earth, they would confront not just political opposition, but the very foundations of their unique bond. The doors of their ship sealed behind them, leaving Nexus Hub and its newly forged peace in their wake. As they set course for Earth, Walter and Stella knew that their greatest test lay ahead, one that would challenge not just their diplomatic skills, but the very nature of their connection. Relationship. The journey back to Earth was tense, filled with unspoken worries about what awaited them. As their ship entered Earth's atmosphere, Walter reached for Stella's hand, their fingers intertwining. The alien device in his pocket hummed softly, a constant reminder of their unique bond. Upon landing, they were immediately surrounded by a swarm of officials, reporters, and curious onlookers. Camera flashes erupted around them as they were quickly ushered into a waiting vehicle. "Ambassador Stella, is it true that you and Commander Walter have developed a physiological link?" a reporter shouted. "Commander, what are the implications of your relationship for future human-Yadaran cooperation?" another called out. Walter and Stella remained silent, their faces neutral as they were whisked away to a secure government facility. The car ride was a blur of passing scenery and hushed conversations between their escorts. As they arrived at the facility, a stern-faced woman in a crisp military uniform approached them. "I'm General Hawthorne. You'll be separated for individual debriefings. This way, Commander Walter." Stella's bioluminescent patterns flickered with anxiety as Walter was led away. It was the first time they'd been apart since their mission began, and the sudden absence of his presence left her feeling unbalanced. Walter was escorted to a sterile interrogation room. A panel of military officials sat before him, their expressions grave. "Commander, we need a full report on this alien communication device," one official began. "How does it function? What are its capabilities?" Walter chose his words carefully. "The device facilitates a sensory link between users. It enhances communication and coordination, especially between humans and Yadarans." "And the physiological effects?" another official pressed. "We've received reports of unusual changes in both you and Ambassador Stella." Walter's mind raced, torn between his duty to report and his need to protect Stella. "There have been some adaptations, yes, but nothing that compromises our ability to function or our loyalty to our respective species." Meanwhile, Stella found herself in a medical bay, surrounded by eager Earth scientists. They bustled around her, taking samples and running scans. "Fascinating," one scientist murmured, studying a holographic display of Stella's biology. "The cellular structure shows signs of adaptation to Earth's environment. And here, look at the neural pathways. They've been altered, likely due to the prolonged connection with Commander Walter." Stella remained calm, but her luminous patterns betrayed her unease. "What are the implications of these changes?" she asked. The lead scientist's eyes gleamed with excitement. It could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies biology. The potential for true human-yadaran integration is, well, it's beyond anything we've imagined. As the debriefings continued, a commotion outside caught everyone's attention. A group of human-yadaran hybrid children, led by a determined young girl named Lyra, had gathered outside the facility. They carried signs with messages like, "We are the future," and "Two worlds, one family." The peaceful demonstration forced the government to confront the reality of existing human-yadaran families. Officials huddled in hushed conversations, their plans clearly disrupted by this unexpected development. After hours of intense questioning and examinations, Walter and Stella were finally reunited before a special committee. The room was filled with high-ranking officials from both Earth and Yater, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "We require a practical demonstration of this device," the committee chair announced. "We need to understand its full capabilities and potential risks." Walter and Stella exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. They knew this moment could be crucial for the future of human-yadaran relations. "We're willing to demonstrate," Walter said, his voice steady. "But I want to be clear. This isn't just a piece of technology. It's a bridge between our species, a way to truly understand each other." Stella nodded, her luminous patterns pulsing with agreement. "We hope this experience will foster greater empathy and cooperation between our peoples." As Walter activated the device, a familiar hum filled the air. He and Stella stood facing each other, their connection intensifying. But suddenly, the device's power surged unexpectedly. The sensory link expanded, enveloping several committee members in its field. Gasps and exclamations filled the room as humans and Yadarans alike experienced a moment of profound connection. Emotions, sensations, and fragments of thoughts flowed between them, breaking down barriers of misunderstanding and prejudice. When the effects subsided, the committee members sat in stunned silence. The human chair of the committee, his face pale, was the first to speak. "That was extraordinary. I've never felt anything like it." A Yadaran official, her bioluminescent patterns still flickering from the experience, added, "It seems we have much to learn about the potential of human-Yadaran cooperation." As the implications of the demonstration sank in, Walter and Stella knew their journey was a long way to go. The device had opened new possibilities, but it had also raised countless questions. They stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, their unique bond a testament to the potential of their two species united. As the implications of their demonstration sank in, Walter and Stella found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. The unexpected connection experienced by the committee members had sparked a paradigm shift in human-Yadaran relations, opening doors they never thought possible. In the days that followed, Walter and Stella were approached by a joint Earth-Yater task force with an unprecedented proposal. Admiral Jansen, a seasoned human diplomat, addressed them in a private meeting room. "Commander Walter, Ambassador Stella," he began, his voice filled with gravitas. "In light of recent events, we have a unique opportunity before us. We're proposing a pioneering expedition to establish the first officially sanctioned human-Yadaran colony." Stella's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with excitement as Walter leaned forward, intrigued. "A joint colony?" he asked. "Precisely," confirmed Dr. Zaks, the Yadaran representative. "We've identified a suitable planet, which we're calling Nova Harmonia. It's a chance to build something truly revolutionary." Walter and Stella exchanged glances, their connection humming with shared enthusiasm. Without a word, they knew they were in agreement. "We accept," Stella said, her voice resonating with conviction. The next few months were a blur of intensive preparation. Walter and Stella found themselves at the heart of a massive undertaking, working alongside a diverse team of experts to ready themselves for the challenges ahead. In the state-of-the-art training facility, Walter wiped sweat from his brow as he completed another simulation of Nova Harmonia's harsh environment. Beside him, Stella's skin shimmered with exertion, her movements perfectly synchronized with his own. "Your adaptation to the planet's atmosphere is progressing well," noted Dr. Chen, the lead xenobiologist. "However, these physiological changes—" She trailed off, her brow furrowed as she studied the readouts. Walter felt a twinge of concern through his link with Stella. Their bodies had been undergoing subtle but accelerating changes since their prolonged use of the communication device. It was a subject of fascination and worry for the medical team. As the launch date approached, the excitement was palpable. The colony ship, christened Unity, stood proudly on the launch pad, a marvel of human and Yadaran engineering. Its sleek lines and pulsing bioluminescent accents symbolized the merging of their two cultures. The day of departure arrived with a mix of anticipation and tension. Crowds gathered, a sea of faces, both human and Yadaran. Supporters cheered and waved banners, while protesters voiced their concerns about the unprecedented mission. Walter and Stella stood at the base of the ship, addressing the assembled colonists, a carefully selected group of humans, Yadarans, and hybrid families. Today, we embark on a journey not just across space, but towards a new understanding between our peoples, Walter began, his voice carrying across the launch pad. Stella continued, her bioluminescence pulsing in harmony with her words. On Nova Harmonia, we will face challenges unlike any we've known, but together, we will build a future that honors both our traditions and our shared potential. As they boarded the Unity, Walter felt a surge of emotion through his link with Stella, a complex blend of excitement, apprehension, and hope. The ship's engines roared to life, and with a tremendous burst of energy, they were airborne, leaving Earth behind and hurtling towards an uncertain future. The journey to Nova Harmonia was long and not without its trials. Walter and Stella found themselves constantly navigating the complexities of their mixed-species crew. Cultural misunderstandings and interpersonal conflicts arose, testing their leadership and their bond. One evening, as they sat in the ship's observation deck, watching the stars streak by, a heated argument broke out between a human engineer and a Yadaran botanist. "Your atmospheric calculations are flawed," the human shouted. "We'll all suffocate if we follow your recommendations." The Yadaran's bioluminescence flared angrily. "Your narrow human perspective fails to account for the adaptive capabilities of Yadaran plant life." Walter and Stella exchanged a glance, their link humming with shared purpose. They approached the arguing pair, the communication device pulsing gently in Walter's pocket. "Perhaps we can find a middle ground," Stella suggested, her voice calm and melodious. Walter nodded, activating the device. A soft glow enveloped the four of them, and suddenly, understanding bloomed. The human gasped as he experienced the intricate knowledge of Yadaran botany, while the Yadaran's eyes widened as human engineering principles became clear. As the effect faded, the two looked at each other with newfound respect. I think I see where you were coming from," the human said, his voice filled with wonder. Incidents like these became more frequent as the journey progressed. Walter and Stella used the device judiciously, helping to bridge gaps and foster unity among the colonists. However, each use seemed to accelerate the changes in their own bodies, a fact that didn't go unnoticed by the ship's medical team. Dr. Lyra, the chief medical officer, called them in for yet another examination. As she studied the results, her face grew increasingly perplexed. "Your cellular structures are continuing to adapt," she explained. "It's as if your bodies are evolving to better facilitate your connection." Before they could discuss the implications further, alarms blared throughout the ship. Walter and Stella raced to the bridge, where they were confronted with a terrifying sight. A massive ion storm loomed ahead, its swirling energies threatening to tear the Unity apart. "All hands, brace for impact," Walter shouted, his fingers flying over the control panel. Beside him, Stella's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly as she interfaced with the ship's Yadaran systems. The Unity plunged into the storm, shuddering violently as ion waves battered its hull. Walter's engineering expertise and Stella's intimate knowledge of Yadaran technology were pushed to their limits as they fought to keep the ship intact. Through their link, they worked in perfect synchronization, anticipating each other's moves and compensating for the storm's unpredictable surges. The colonists huddled in fear as the ship bucked and groaned around them. After what seemed like an eternity, they emerged on the other side of the storm. The Unity was damaged, its supplies depleted, but they had survived. As the crew erupted in relieved cheers, Walter and Stella shared a moment of quiet triumph, their hands intertwined and their bond humming with shared exhaustion and pride. Little did they know, this harrowing experience was just the first of many challenges that awaited them on their journey to Nova Harmonia. As the Unity limped onwards towards their destination, Walter and Stella steeled themselves for the trials yet to come, their evolving bond both a source of strength and a growing mystery. As they approached Nova Harmonia, the changes in their bodies accelerated, both fascinating and alarming the medical team. The Unity's sensors picked up the first glimpse of their new home, a swirling orb of blues and greens. Excitement rippled through the crew as they prepared for planetfall. However, as they entered orbit, alarms blared once again. Massive energy fluctuations detected on the surface, reported the science officer, her voice tight with concern. Walter and Stella rushed to the bridge, their link humming with shared anxiety. The view screen showed pulsing beams of light erupting from what appeared to be ancient structures scattered across the planet's surface. "Those ruins," Stella murmured, her bioluminescence flickering rapidly. "They're not natural formations." Walter nodded, his mind racing. "And those energy pulses, they're destabilizing the planet's core." Dr. Lyra burst onto the bridge, her face pale. "Walter, Stella, we need to talk. Now." In the privacy of the medical bay, Dr. Lyra revealed her findings. "Your cellular structures have merged to an unprecedented degree. You're neither fully human nor Yadarin anymore." Walter and Stella exchanged glances, feeling the weight of this revelation. Before they could process it fully, the ship shuddered violently. "We're out of time," Walter said, his voice resolute. "We need to land and find a way to stabilize the planet." As the Unity touched down on Nova Harmonia's surface, the colonists watched in awe as Walter and Stella led the way out of the ship. Their bodies seemed to shimmer, a blend of human form and Yadarin bioluminescence. The ancient alien ruins loomed before them, pulsing with ominous energy. Walter pulled out the communication device, its familiar hum now in sync with the energy surrounding them. "We need to use it one last time," Stella said, her voice echoing Walter's thoughts. They activated the device, and this time, the effect was unlike anything they had experienced before. Their consciousnesses merged completely, creating a single entity that was neither Walter nor Stella, but something entirely new. The hybrid being Walter-Stella moved with fluid grace towards the alien facility. Their merged mind processed information at an incredible speed, deciphering the complex alien technology with ease. As they worked, the colonists watched in amazement. Walter-Stella's body emitted a soft, pulsating glow as they manipulated holographic interfaces and rerouted energy flows. Human commitment blended seamlessly with Yadarin intuition, creating a synergy that seemed perfectly suited to the task at hand. "The planet's core," Walter-Stella explained, their voice a harmonious blend of both individuals. "It's connected to these facilities. The original inhabitants used them for planetary engineering. They delved deeper into the alien systems, their hybrid physiology allowing them to interface directly with the technology. Streams of data flowed through their mind, revealing the planet's history and the purpose of the ruins." As Walter-Stella neared the final stages of stabilizing the core, they realized the gravity of what needed to be done. The procedure required more energy than their body could safely channel. In that moment of clarity, they made their decision. Walter-Stella initiated the final sequence, knowing it might mean the end of their individual selves. Energy surged through the facility, using Walter-Stella as a conduit. Their body glowed brightly, illuminating the entire chamber. The colonists shielded their eyes as a blinding flash engulfed the area. When the light faded, the energy pulses had stopped. The planet was stable. But where Walter and Stella had stood, there was now a single figure lying unconscious on the ground. The colonists rushed forward, unsure of what they would find. The being before them was neither fully human nor Yadarin, but a perfect blend of both. As they watched, the hybrid's eyes fluttered open, filled with recognition and something more. A new consciousness born from the union of Walter and Stella. This new individual, soon dubbed Unity by the colonists, became a living symbol of what their colony could achieve. In the days that followed, Unity's unique perspective and abilities helped bridge the remaining gaps between humans and Yatarans. As Nova Harmonia began to flourish under Unity's guidance, news of their success spread. The colony became a beacon of hope for interspecies cooperation, drawing visitors and new settlers from both Earth and Yatar. 1 year after their arrival, Nova Harmonia celebrated its first anniversary. The once hostile planet had been transformed into a thriving world where humans, Yatarans, and hybrids lived in harmony. Unity stood at the center of the celebration, their gaze turned towards the stars, reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. The alien communication device, no longer needed, was carefully placed in a newly constructed museum. As night fell on Nova Harmonia, Unity looked out over the colony, their merged mind contemplating the future. They knew that their journey was just the beginning, but with the combined strength of two species and the wisdom of an ancient civilization, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.